The Monopole Hotel, Sussex Gardens, London. One of scores of bed and breakfast hotels that once took in tourists but are now full of homeless bed and breakfast families. More than 13,000 men, women and children.
Do you want 2 eggs? Yeah?
Among this growing army, Hilary Sober and 2-year-old Aisha. A probation officer's daughter, she fled her council flat, a victim of domestic violence. The council's response? Bed and breakfast. That was nearly 9 months ago.
Eat it up, man. Is it nice? Mummy loves some toast. Well, there's no cooking facilities. I have to wash up, wash myself and I should do my hand washing, everything in that one sink, which is not right. The stairways are always filthy with food. There's tin cans empty on the stairs all the time. The toilet is always, you know, there's urine on the floor. There's no light in either the toilet or the shower. There's nothing here, nothing.
And what sort of impact does that have upon your daughter, living in a place like this?
She's very aggressive with other children. I don't know why, but she's got no room here. She's a very lively child and she's frustrated in this room. It's all right in the good weather, you can get out a day like today. You just have to stay in here all day. And she can't even have all her toys. They're in storage or at my dad's. I think it's disgusting. It's £140 a week for this room. That's how much the homeless or Camden is paying. And I'd much rather be given the chance to have my own place. Whatever condition it was in, I'd do it up. And then I'd be paying them rent instead of putting me through all this and the child and paying out all that money. And they've got empty properties all over.
So how depressed do you get?
Sometimes worse than others. I mean, sometimes you think you're getting somewhere, people take an interest, and you think that maybe, you know... I mean, I haven't even had an interview. It's nearly 9 months I've been on the homeless persons list, and I haven't even had an interview, so no one even knows my circumstances under which I became homeless. So it's very depressing, because I write letters I've written to my MP, Margaret Thatcher, the Director of Housing, so many times. And nothing seems to get anywhere.
Pat Paradise has been in hotels for 14 months now. Her husband holds down a steady job as a £90 a week delivery man for John Lewis. But with rented accommodation in London, scarce and expensive, that's not enough to escape bed and breakfast. So the family are still homeless.
I constantly feel ill, depressed. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, you see other couples and that, they've got a home and that. I mean, they're happy and that. You know, all I've got is just this room. I mean, I can't do things like I want to do. I mean, as soon as I tidy up, as you can see, the place is a mess again. There's no privacy. It's just terrible. I mean, sometimes I just sit down here, I just cry, because I just don't know how long it's going to be. I've been there 9 months now. I just don't know how long it's going to be. I feel hopeless. So, you know, they put you in a corner and just forgot about you. Nothing.
And what sort of effect is it having on your daughter?
It's terrible. I mean, she's so backward. I mean, she's not even talking. Well, she'll say a couple of words, but she's not even talking yet properly. I mean, all she does is cry when I'm in here. It's sort of very tiring. I'm trying to cheer her up when I've got to cheer myself up, sort of thing. I mean, my husband don't come in till late. So really, I'm in here all day on my own. I mean, I go to shops, or even a park or something like that. But I've still got to come back into this place where I'm living at the moment.
What did you want to say?
I want to see him because I've been there for 1.5 years. I want to know what's going on with my case here.
I don't know. Well, as soon as he's on the counter today, he'll come up to you as soon as he comes here.
Listen, here it is.
Hello, Mr. Coker.
Now, listen, I want to know what's happening to my case now. I've been there for 1.5 years. What's going on?
Now, 2 children, is it? Just the one son.
Camden Homeless Persons Unit. This is the front line of homelessness. Some of these people have nowhere to go tonight. Others are desperate to escape from bed and breakfast. Last year, London councils spent over £13 million on keeping families in hotels. This year, homelessness will cost millions more. In the last 3 years, London's homeless in bed and breakfast has risen by 300%. 30 new homeless families are accepted by Camden each week.
What I want is to get an official paper stating that we can stay there because my husband's been arrested.
Is it always as busy as this?
On a Monday, yes, certainly is. It's quiet for a Monday, actually. Although later in the week it quietens down a little bit.
How big is the size of the problem?
1,600 families, 500 in bed and breakfast, and another 200 odd in council-owned temporary accommodation, plus a lot staying with family and friends who are liable to be coming through the door looking for bed and breakfast or temporary accommodation at any time.
And is the problem getting worse?
It seems to be getting worse to us, most certainly. We don't seem to be able to rehouse the people that are presenting as homeless, and at the same time we're having greater difficulties providing them with temporary accommodation.
So do the people working here feel that bed and breakfast is suitable for families?
No, I don't think anyone feels it's suitable. In fact, it's totally unsuitable for families. The problem is that in a place like this, we've got to find somewhere for people to go to at the end of the day. Everyone who comes through into this office, if they need somewhere to stay that night, we've got to find it. And if we've got no alternative, then it has to be bed and breakfast.
A 7-week-old baby.
Well, that's right, you're in priority need. If you're homeless, you're in priority need.
This is one of the worst housing scandals of our time, and it cries out for urgent action. And we've said to ministers and we've said to civil servants, this is something which must be halted soon. But as yet, there is very little indication that government are treating this as seriously as they should and taking urgent action to put an end to this scandalous use of bed and breakfast hotels.
Nobody seems to care for these people. Well, I mean, I think that people do care, but they don't actually do anything. These people very much fall between the responsibilities of the boroughs and the government and different boroughs. It's impossible to expect any sort of coordination. And the result is that if nobody accepts the responsibility, I think they are very much like the boat people from a couple of years ago. Nobody wanted them. Everybody said, well, they're in the seas, let them, somebody else look after them.
Just 6 days ago, Lola Henry gave birth to her second child. Now, with her tiny baby and a 2-year-old, she's back in bed and breakfast. Brent Council have allowed her out of hospital to the same Bayswater hotel room she lived in before.
You're not happy, are you?
So how does it feel to be back, Lola?
Gosh, makes me feel really downhearted. At least I felt a bit better in the hospital, you know? Sort of, my heart sort of lifted a bit, but now it's like you haven't got no hope at all. I have to go up to Brent House anyway tomorrow. Have a talk with her face to face because when I phone her, I don't get no results at all. It's not no environment to bring up 2 children anyway. Plus, I ain't got no space to put a carry cot or anything. It's just ridiculous. I'm telling you, I really, I'm telling you, the anger that's inside of me is just something else. It's supposed to make me feel like I could just fling everything out of this room. It's all. It just makes me want to really cry, but I tell you, I can't even, not even tears anyway come from my eye. It's heartless in a way.
Brent Council pay £110 weekly for Pat's room, but Hotel Living has damaged Pat's health.
I was expecting a baby a couple of months ago and I've lost that baby. I was in hospital for a couple of days and that. And it was all down to coming up the stairs, just 4 or 5 flights of stairs. I've got to come up with Charlene, plus shopping, plus washing and that. The strain was so much that I just lost the baby.
Eat it. Nice. Beans. Beans.
And her daughter Charlene has been in hospital twice with bronchial problems.
Charlene, come on.
Dolly, have some. Come on, Charlene. Come on, you've got to eat. You get a smack in a minute. Sit down. Open. Come on. Come on, then. Come on. Right, go with that.
What are the basic causes of this bed and breakfast explosion?
Well, quite simply, the increasing numbers of homeless families. The numbers have been going up steadily throughout recent years. We've got more homeless people now than at any time since the end of the last war, which is a pretty shocking figure for any society. More homeless people and less homes for them to go into, because local authority house building programmes have been drastically cut back. In London, from around 24,000, 25,000 new homes being started every year 10 years ago, we're now seeing probably no more than 3,000 or 4,000 new homes a year. I mean, that's an incredible change.
London has thousands of empty properties. Hilary is seriously contemplating squatting in one of them, a council flat awaiting repair. But the vast majority of empties are not council property, but privately owned. Landlords often prefer to leave them empty.
Well, what do you think about squatting now?
Well, I think it's ridiculous that this place has been empty for so long. And it's nearly ready for use. Nothing much wrong with it. And it's empty, wasting. So I think I'd rather live here than in a bed and breakfast, put it that way.
And yet, won't you jeopardise your position in the waiting list by coming here?
Well, the time that I would be squatting wouldn't count as time of being homeless. It probably would put me back a bit, but I'm not getting anywhere anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
The Paradises have lived in 3 different hotels in 14 months of homelessness. A council inspection found overcrowding and poor food hygiene in the Glen Cairn. The strain's beginning to tell.
It's terrible. I'll be divorced in a couple of months. I can see it coming now.
And, were you getting on all right with your husband before you came in here?
Yeah, just be quite happy, but now it looks like we've got no interest or anything. We're just at each other's throat. I mean, we haven't... I mean, lately in that, we have had rows and it has been violent. I mean, it's the only way we can get to each other to get the depression out of you sort of thing. You know?
And when you say violent, what do you mean exactly?
No, we've had a punch up for each other, you know. I mean, he's had a go at me and I've had a go at him back. And at the end of it, we just realised it's stupid because it's in the situation that we're in. What's making it like us, like this. I mean, really, I just hope soon I do get a place. I think if I'm in here much longer, it's just going to crack me up. I mean, there's sometimes when I could, I don't know, just smash the place up.
I get the feeling very strongly that we're actually pushing people into mental illness by cooping them up in hotel rooms. The court report on the health of children a few years ago stressed the need for every child, as I think they said, to have a secure family environment for proper emotional development. But I see families who go into a hotel full of hope, effort. They're trying hard, they're probably in work, or maybe sometimes, of course, not in work, and they're trying hard to make a home, and they do the best within the capabilities that they have with a hotel room. And I've seen a family like that. A year later, the family's broken up.
All right. You done the baby? Right.
What did you get?
Chinese.
All footballs.
Want something to eat? Hey? You hungry? You've been all right today?
Same as usual.
Speak up from me, then.
So same as usual. Where's my pork balls?
I didn't get any today. You had them last night.
Don't matter. No,
Couldn't
got
afford
fancy.
it. And I've never been out of work in my life. I've been working 11 years now, and I think I've only drawn 1 week's unemployment benefit. Like the rest, I've always worked. Never asked this country for nothing, and I don't even think I would like to, and that. But the council don't seem to be doing nothing. I just can't believe what's going on at the moment, and I don't think anybody else can. Living in 4 light walls, it's like a prison, but you can open the door and go out. It's just unbearable sometimes. We just got to go out and walk around the block for a little while. Like when I come in, like I get pains in the head, like tension and that I don't have me proper rest. There's 3 of us sleeping in the same room all night, like breathing in the same air, and I just go mad. I smash the wall sometimes, like.
Stand up. No.
Yeah. Good girl.
2 months later, Hilary and Aisha are still in bed and breakfast, still waiting even for an interview with the council. Meanwhile, £140 is paid by Camden each week. But are their living conditions up to standard? We asked Independent Environmental Health Officer John McQuillan to inspect.
I think this is supposed to be a fire escape. It's tied up and it's no use anyway. I've no idea where it goes and I'm not going to try it. There probably was a sign saying it was to a fire exit, but that's been stopped. You'll notice through the rest of the building there's no fire exit signs whatsoever.
What would a child or something do in these circumstances?
Well, they just have to get out down the stairs. That's going to be fairly difficult. There's no handrail in the stairs, there's no signs, and there's a couple of dead ends where people might, in panic, sort of end up the wrong way. You can see the toilet. The floor is filthy, the walls are not readily cleansable and they're slightly holed. And then this is a shower compartment. You can see that there's not much space. This is the only ventilation for it. And then there should be hot water, but you can see it's just a trickle. And there's no hot water. The classic, we have a fire door which is propped open by a fire extinguisher, completely defeating the object of having fire doors. This here will be useless when it starts. This is WC's broken glass just lying there. That could be blown off and injure someone. There's no aerial disconnection to next door. The electrics are rudimentary. This is another fire door that's propped open. Now, this is the main means of escape. So if people are coming down from downstairs, if there's a fire in any of these rooms, this is the protection. It's propped open. This is the worst area for the fire door to be open, because everyone from upstairs has got to come through here. Oops. It's saturated and damp and it's about to collapse. WC's seat's broken. It's generally filthy.
How unhygienic are things like that?
Well, this is how dysentery and things spread in a place like this. There's no hand-washing facilities till you get up to the room. The kids are running around. You've got a lot of kids in the corridor. And that's one of the things that local health visitors are very concerned about. Well, as a means of escape, the fire precautions give me cause for concern. There's a severe lack of facilities for the number of people who are there. There's no cooking facilities at all provided. I think it's a statutory nuisance under the Public Health Act. I think it's unfit for human habitation under the Housing Act. I think as a house in multiple occupation, I would be concerned about means of escape in case of fire, the amenities that are provided, and I would be thinking of serving notices on those matters.
How would you sum up the situation in bed and breakfast land?
I'm appalled. The more I see, the more I think, you know, how can we do this to people? You know, in this day and age, how can we put people into primitive Victorian sort of workhouse conditions?
The monopole is not alone. Accommodation is so scarce, many London boroughs are forced to use hotels that break the law. Brent uses 43 hotels, the number breaking the law under the 1957 Housing Act, 43. Every single one overcrowded. The homeless army is so big, it's almost out of control. It's a problem not just confined to London. Even the elegant city of Bristol contains 8,000 homeless people, mostly young and unemployed. More than 400 bed and breakfast hotels operate. What's the cost?
That's absolutely mind-boggling, because we calculate that something like 20 to 25 million pounds, it's hard to be precise, but a figure of that order is going from the public funds, public purse, into private landlords' pockets as a result of the bed and breakfast scandal.
Most hotels are anonymous. 4 new ones a week open up in suburban houses like these. It's rich pickings. And when the going gets hot, the landlord moves on. the man running this place until 18 months ago, raked in an estimated £100,000 a year. His tax bill, £37,000 unpaid. So were other bills. Despite the debts, Douglas James Wookey, using the names Martin Hunterham Carter or Steve Martin, has set up a new hotel business in Bristol. Another bed and breakfast hotel, 7 Kensington Park Easton. Trevor Cottrell, aged 21, had left his home nearby because of overcrowding. One Sunday, he didn't show up for lunch.
It was about 12:35. My husband looked up at the clock and he said to me, "Trevor's late," and I sort of laughed it off as a joke. And just as I did that, I'd put his dinner into the oven to keep hot, like I always did. And as I say, I laughed it off as a joke. And just as I did that, so the police came and brought the news to me to say that, you know, that he'd gone, and I just couldn't believe it.
The 3 people who died were in a bedroom at the front of the first floor. They were Trevor Cotterell, aged 21, who was unemployed and lived in the house. Martin Marshall, also 21, a plumber from Brislington. And Robert Brooks, a 23-year-old tyre fitter from Yate.
Bob, to what we can gather, he was screaming for help, and he put his arm through the window and he severed the arteries in the arm and bled to death.
A resident has been charged with arson, but the hotel had no fire extinguishers, no fire doors, no fire alarms. The hotel's owner, Carl Parry, 27, has been charged with dishonestly obtaining a mortgage for the hotel, conspiring with others to defraud the DHSS. There are vast sums to be made from homelessness, particularly in London. Take the Sandringham Hotel. Official council report: maggots and pigeon waste in water, bed bugs, no hot water, just 2 cookers for 120 people. Estimated annual income, £250,000. And the Sentry. Official council report: widespread, severe cockroach infestation. Fire precautions not maintained. Estimated annual income, £300,000. The Cleopatra Hotel. Official report: rent-a-kill pest control contract. Problems with German cockroaches, warder beetles and rats. Verdict: unsuitable for homeless families. Estimated income, £525,000. All these hotels run by Mrs. Gulshan Bhatia and her son-in-law, Zulfikar Jetta. Their estimated annual income, well over £1 million. Aristophanes Thrasivulu, also known as Aris Stevens, is the doyen of the bed and breakfast barons. From the Maryland Hotel Finsbury Park, he's been running bed and breakfast for the homeless for over a decade. In 1979, his residents were unhappy.
The company's coming to replace them, so they came and done them. I cannot piece them and fill them up, can I? They've got to be done by the company.
No, but you can get
I've got the maintenance.
There's a fire and my kids get burnt.
I don't care about your kids.
I know you don't. Well,
you have a rule over your head.
I do.
You don't
I do care about my kids.
Go somewhere safer.
6 years later, at Thrasivulu's Brownswood Hotel, his residents' feelings haven't changed.
How many people are living in the room?
3 persons we living in that room, small room. We ain't got any other room. It's only one. And we got some insect. And see this, when I put some fruits up here on the tables, it goes, all insect goes on these fruits and I cannot eat. I got a problem because I'm scared of my boys, because if you eat it, it's very dangerous.
From the basement kitchen, hot food has to be carried up 4 flights of stairs. There's only one cooker for the families. It's shared by 70 people.
It's only one cooker. And the 70 people, they're using one cookers with the 4 wings.
What's it like living in this room?
Very difficult condition. It's no good for man. It is like the living like an animal, not man. The carpet no good, very smell. Everything is no good.
When did you catch that mouse?
Last night at 10 o'clock, under the beds. And I catch up also about 50 on these mouse at the night.
An independent environmental health report found mouse droppings, a large cockroach infestation and serious overcrowding, leading to such a high fire risk for residents that it concluded, "I'm afraid for their safety." Verdict, unfit for human habitation. In his hotels, health visitors report outbreaks of vomiting and diarrhea, probably due to the mice, and epidemics of scabies. A council inspector reported that on one visit, Thrasivulu continually referred to the homeless as "these bastards." He's even unlawfully using cabins or sheds in a hotel backyard for homeless people. In around 10 years, Thrasivulu has expanded from one hotel to 15, 28 separate houses knocked together, many in one street. Sitting tenants don't seem to be an obstacle. Take these flats, which Thrasivulu wanted to convert into another hotel.
I'd been away for a couple of days, and when I came back, which was about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, I went to bed, and the bed was absolutely wringing wet. I just put one foot in it, and it literally squelched. And the next morning, get a ladder, go up on the roof, and I found enormous holes in the roof. There was just water cascading through.
Camden Council ordered Thrasivulu to repair the roof, but he didn't, and was successfully prosecuted for obstructing the council when they tried to repair the damage. This confidential council document also reported allegations of harassment.
His manner all the time was very difficult. You'd talk to him, and for a few sentences or a few points, he'd speak almost rationally, and then suddenly he'd just throw a complete fit. And when the man throws a fit, he's very intimidating. I mean, he has an atmosphere of menace. He's very large, very blustering, very bullyish, and it can be very intimidating.
This woman, an African refugee, complained to the council about mice and cockroaches at a Thrasivulu hotel.
Just he called me in the office, and he came front and he grasped my shoulder and he pushed me from the office. I told him, "Don't push me, don't shout on me." He said, "Why you report because of the mice? There are mice everywhere in London."
Were you frightened by Mr. Thrasivulu?
Yeah, of course, I have to frighten. I can't stand his shouting. And of course, I have to scared. I was alone with my children.
Last year, at the Maryland Hotel, Thrasivulu's manager evicted an Asian woman and her family.
He was very angry, and actually he physically grabbed her hair and pulled her on the floor and kicked her. And that was, I think, the most unfortunate incident has happened on that particular hotel. She was very frightened. She came to us almost in tears, and we comforted her in the next room.
Mr. Thrasivulu lives in 2 houses knocked into one. If 1985 continues as it began, his annual income will be approaching £2 million. £1,646,000 of that from just one council, Tower Hamlets.
The economics are the economics of the madhouse. It is quite simply costing the state more money to put families in squalid, unsatisfactory bed and breakfast hotels than it would to meet the entire cost of building brand new council houses for them and housing them properly in that housing. I mean, that is the simple economics. It is costing more to put families in grossly unsatisfactory bed and breakfast hotels than to provide decent homes. The only reason is that bed and breakfast comes out of the council's revenue account, whereas building new houses requires capital investment.
The Thorncliffe Hotel near Heathrow is now full with nearly 800 homeless people. Once owned by British Airways, it's a monument to the failure of British housing policies. Its annual turnover, well over £1 million. It also appears to double rent some rooms. In April, Brent Council were paying for Mary Donovan and her 5 children to use room 58. But when we visited the same day...
This is room 58. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, is this room yours?
Yeah, that's
room
mine.
58.
Come in.
I was looking for Mary Donovan. Are you Mary Donovan?
No,
Ah. What's your name?
I'm Mrs. Ravi.
Mrs. Ravi. And how long have you been here for?
Nearly a year.
And how long have you been in this room 58 for?
58 since December.
Since December.
For room 58, the DHSS were paying £249 for Mrs. Ravi and Brent £203 for Mary Donovan at the same time. Next room, 318, should be Mrs. Hogan.
Room 318. Hello, are the Hogans in?
Hogans? I've
Yes.
no idea.
Oh, they're with Brent Council. They're not in this room?
No.
Oh, I must have given the wrong number. Are you with Brent?
No.
Oh, which
Ealing Council.
With Ealing. Oh, that's very confusing. What's your name? Do you mind if I ask?
Bickerton.
Bickerton. Right, I must have been given the wrong room. I'm sorry. All
Thank
right.
you.
Cheerio then.
For room 318, Ealing paid £203 a week for the Mickertins and Brent £112 a week for Mrs. Hogan at the same time. We found one further double-rented room. Total monthly rent paid by Brent for double-rented rooms, £1,532.64. In addition, on 5 separate visits, we found 5 rooms Brent were paying for when the families seemed to have disappeared. Total monthly rent for missing families, £3,698.30. A few days before our last visit, owner Hansraj Popat sold the hotel. Sale price, around £5 million, more than double what he'd paid for it just 15 months before. In Newcastle too, the number of homeless has grown rapidly to over 400, many young, single and unemployed. The 73-bed Northeastern is the biggest bed and breakfast hotel. The freehold's owned by the City Council itself and was leased to this man, John Capstaff, specifically as a high-class hotel. Instead, the hotel became a tatty refuge for the single, homeless and unemployed. In June 1984, Capstaff was found guilty of 10 breaches of fire regulations, including fire exit doors padlocked and having a silencing switch on the fire alarm. Fine, £3,300. Soon after, the council discovered 16 occupied rooms in the hotel, like this one, with no natural light or ventilation. Council verdict, unfit for human habitation. The decision, to prosecute Capstaff under the 1957 Housing Act. Found guilty. Fine, £1,000 plus costs. Capstaff's solicitor pleaded his case to the council. The firm, Henderson, Beecham and Peacock. Senior partner and personally involved in the case, Jeremy Beecham. Beecham is the leader of Newcastle City Council, which had leased the hotel to Capstaff in the first place. Beecham told us his involvement was confined to advising Capstaff to comply with the council over the illegal rooms. But that's not the case. Beecham had in fact been involved in helping Capstaff seek planning permission for the Northeastern in the first place. Indeed, far from being a limited involvement, Beecham had known Capstaff for years and had acted as his solicitor since 1978. Beecham told us his business and civic lives are kept quite separate, and he insists that he was not involved as leader of the council in any decision affecting the Northeastern. Another substantial hotel, the Norfolk. It has 5 additional but anonymous annexes like these. It's run by John Bowden, who seems a respectable and wealthy businessman. He owns an Earl's Court flat and a smart Kensington Mews property. Bowden, one-time owner of the Birdcage nightclub, lives in Jesmond, a very select area of Newcastle. His children go to expensive private schools. But in his hotel, the council discovered 70 items of disrepair, contrary to the 1957 and 61 Housing Acts. Helping him with the homeless is Billy Fletcher. In 1981, Fletcher was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment for unlawful wounding. He struck a man in the cheek with a knife and broke his cheekbone. At the Norfolk, Fletcher, or Bowden himself, dealt with any trouble.
There was a young lad in the hotel. In fact, there was a couple and they were arguing on the landing. And one of them had owed John Bowden some money and he couldn't give him it, he hadn't gotten his money. So John Bowden, there's 3 flights in the hotel and John Bowden kicked him from the top flight right the way down. And when the lad hit the bottom, he must have been knocked out for a good 10 minutes. And there was blood all over. It was terrible.
Fear of Bowden spread beyond his tenants. One annex is at Fern Avenue. Next door live university chaplain Brian Vernon and his family. After complaining about a private house being used as a hotel, his wife received a disturbing visit from Bowden.
When you came home after this incident, how disturbed and frightened was your wife?
Oh, very much so. I mean, she was up in the attic with the children, as being sort of as far away as she could get. And, I mean, this wasn't just the action of someone who's being very neurotic and pathetic. I mean, my wife has been a ward sister, has worked in a casualty unit, has had people come to see her whose children have been non-accidentally injured. I mean, she's not a meek and mild mouse who's terrified of anybody. And she was actually quite frightened.
Some months later, the chaplain received a second visit.
I came back from a conference, and within 5 minutes, John Bowden was on the doorstep and said to me that he wanted me to keep out of his affairs, not to interfere, that it was all his private business and nothing to do with me, and stood there and said, I'm a very violent man. I'm only just managing to control myself at the moment.
Did you feel that it was a clear-cut threat?
Oh, yes, very much so. I mean, I actually felt so frightened that I went, I mean, in a sense, almost had a mechanism for saying, this can't be happening to me, it can't be real, you know, this is ridiculous, because it's so much outside my experience, and it was actually jolly frightening.
Well, he come banging on my door at the new flat that I just moved into, and he started saying he had friends in the Civic Centre. He was sick of the Civic Centre inspecting his property. He was sick of different people from the Civic Centre saying he had to do this, he had to do that, he had to improve this condition, he had to improve that condition. And he was sick of me complaining to the Civic Centre. Then he threatened to spend £1,000 and have me killed.
Did he actually get any money out?
He just got an envelope out, a brown envelope, and he said there was £1,000 in it, and he was going to spend it.
And were you frightened?
Of course I was frightened. I know the reputation of Mr. Bowden.
There was just a knock on the door, and I went down, and there was just 3 men. And they asked if Brian was in, and I said no. And asked where he was, and I said I don't know. And then they started getting really nasty and saying, well, you must know where he is. And I said I didn't know, and then he asked them who they were. And they just turned around and said, look, he says, never mind who we are. He says, but the next time Brian walks out the front door, he won't walk back in. And I just slammed the front door and I locked it. And I come up here and I locked the back door and I locked all the windows. And I sat here petrified all afternoon until Brian come back. You know, I was petrified. But John Bowden's car was at the bottom of the street. But he was sitting in it, but he didn't come to the door, he just sat. I was frightened, really frightened.
But his residents are harassed in other ways too. There's little or no privacy for the female residents.
Well, he would just come into the room, use his key, open the door, and he'd come in, sit on the end of the bed, get his penis out, and he just says, come on, if you need the money, you've got to work for it.
So it was absolutely as bald as that?
Yes, he was very straightforward, and he just didn't care.
Were you frightened by all that?
Yes. I was frightened because you didn't know, well, you weren't getting your sleep, you were frightened because he was just going to walk into the room. You had no privacy at all. It was disgusting. Terrible. And it's not fair on other people. I would never go back.
He came into my room one day and he says that he could do a lot for me if I do a lot for him. And he undone his trousers and he took out his penis and tried to get me to touch it, and I refused. In fact, I was literally panic-stricken, and he seen that, and then so I just put it away and I refused. And I think he knew, and then he got out. But even after that, he still used to, if you're walking along the hallway, touch your backside or grab your boobs, you know. supposed to be in carry-on, but it wasn't.
And did you feel frightened by that experience?
Literally terrified.
It was 2 o'clock in the morning when Mr. Bowden come, and he just let himself in the room. And I was in bed, I was asleep, and he woke us up. And he asked us if I wanted money, and I said no. And he said if I needed anything, that I just had to ask him. And then he asked us if he could get in the bed beside us. And I told him to either get out or I would scream. And eventually he did leave. But the next night he come back and just let himself in again. And he took his trousers down and asked us to play with his thing. And I was just, in fact, I started crying.
The Norfolk's owners, who leased the hotel to Bowden, could scarcely approve. They're the highly respectable charity, the St Mary Magdalene and Holy Jesus Trust, who run 2 Newcastle hospitals. Among the trustees, 4 city councillors. The Trust's avowed aim, the general relief of the poor. Annual rent for the Norfolk, just £2,000. And by December last year, Bowden was 20 months in arrears.
We estimate that in the last financial year, the landlord was making in the region of £150,000 gross from principally DHSS claimants. We have, over the last year, had a number of complaints from residents which we have passed on to the Environmental Health Department about conditions. We have also been in touch with the Tenancy Relations Officer about harassment complaints, which I understand have been taken up and are still proceeding. I would say that for every person who makes a complaint, who actually has the courage to come to an advice centre and make a complaint, there are certainly 2 or 3 others who would back up the story, but would not put that on the record to anybody in any form.
We discovered that the City Council have a secret file about Bowden, but so far they've taken no action. So Councillor Nigel Todd decided it was time to speak out.
There are allegations by officers, properly reported and logged, that Mr Bowden would make it worth their while to, if they would provide information about houses that he could then use in pursuing his business. There's also another allegation by an officer that he knows that Mr Bowden attacked a builder, and that really is quite serious, I would have thought. What struck me about the information in the Civic Centre's secret file was that here was a landlord who seemed to stop at nothing, really. He would apparently think nothing of attacking people physically or offering bribes and inducements. There seemed to be no limit to the way in which he would try to corrupt the world around him in order to presumably just make a profit for himself, and making a profit out of social need. These hotels exist because the government and many local authorities won't take seriously the problems of housing often the single homeless, and so it provides an unscrupulous, sleazy market in which people like Mr Bowden can thrive.
Apparently, the builder in the secret file had hot tea thrown in his face, was hit over the head with a chair and threatened with a knife. Yet even today, Bowden's Norfolk Hotel is on the council's recommended list given to homeless families.
I think he's just, living on people, and I think it's disgusting. It's, he's just preying on unemployed and especially young girls. He just takes things for granted. That you've got, when you're unemployed, you need money and you do anything for it.
Bowden is living off people. He's given them the basic squalor, and they're having to pay the top rate. They're paying £44 for a room, and they get nothing whatsoever. They get dirty sheets, filthy rooms. They get visits during the night. And Bowden is just living off the homeless people. He's leeching off other people's misery.
5,000 more people will become officially homeless this year. In London, after nearly a year of homelessness, Hilary has been promised her first interview.
And the thing is, I can't stay in there no longer because it's doing my mind over. Yes, but
Pat's been in bed and breakfast over a year now. She's getting desperate.
Nobody seems to want to listen or want to do anything.
But I am listening. I am listening.
All I'm
and I
asking for
understand
is a
exactly
little
what
flat
you're
somewhere
saying.
where I can bring up my family properly. That's all I'm asking for.
And that is the same thing the 1,000 families we're dealing with are asking for.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
but there must be somewhere for me to go.
Yes, but you have to wait for what?
Yeah, how long?
I mean, it's now taken you, what, since July last year, and you still haven't got anything yet. You will get something, hopefully soon, but no one can say that within the next month or so you're going to get
I know that, love,
because
but
it depends on what's
I don't know how
available.
long I can take it any longer.
Well, we can see that. You mean, we've already noted that.
I'm up here and that, and I'm telling Mabel and that. It's just, I just don't feel like, I can't explain it,
I can understand what you're saying. I can understand what you're saying.
How do you feel about that?
So disgusted. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's just disgusted. Don't know if it'll take it any longer. Fed up. It's a bloody time.
Is it particularly bad at the moment?
It always is. You just feel neglected. There's no help anywhere in there. I mean, I've been in there nearly an hour now. I've been waiting for that. I mean, every time I get out, I feel the same. I feel so low down. I shouldn't do. I just don't care. Matter of months, more like 2 to 3 years you've got to wait.
3 months later, Pat found herself without light, heat and hot water. For weeks, the family lived by candlelight. As a result, the council finally offered them a flat. They've been homeless for 15 months. But next year, the average stay in Brent hotels will be 3 years. Pat is one of 500,000 people homeless in Britain today.